Episode 5. This is how an agent stops being a demo in a script and becomes something you run, leave, and come back to. 2 ideas. Sessions, which persist the conversation, and checkpointing, which lets you rewind the files. 3 things they buy you. 1. You survive a restart. The whole conversation is written to disk, so a crash or a redeploy does not lose the agent's context. 2. You recover from a limit. When a run stops on max turns, the session is still there. The error did not burn it. 3. You branch and undo. Fork the conversation to try an alternative and rewind the files when an edit goes wrong. Let's start with where a session actually lives. A session is just a JSON-L file the SDK writes for you, 1 per session. The path matters more than it looks. It lives under .claude projects, then a folder named after your working directory with every non-alphanumeric character replaced by a dash. Here's the gotcha that costs people an afternoon. The lookup is keyed on that encoded directory. Resume from a different folder, and the SDK looks in the wrong place, finds nothing, and quietly hands you a brand new session instead of your history. Same machine, same directory, or it misses. There are 3 ways back into a session, and they differ only in how they find it. Continue grabs the most recent session in the current directory, you track nothing. Perfect when your app runs 1 conversation at a time. Resume takes a specific session ID that you stored. You need this the moment you have more than 1 session, say 1 per user. Fork is the different one. It copies the history into a new session and diverges from there, leaving the original untouched. Let's see each in code. Continue is the one you reach for first. A second query, same directory with continue set to true. The SDK finds the most recent session on disk and the agent picks up with full context. The files it read, the analysis it did, the decisions it made, no ID handling at all. This is the right tool for a command line script that runs 1 conversation and gets rerun in the same shell. When you have more than 1 session, you track the ID yourself. The session ID sits on every result message, whether the run succeeded or errored, and in TypeScript it also arrives early on the init system message from episode 1. Grab it, persist it. Then later, even in a completely new process, pass it to resume, and the agent rehydrates the whole conversation. You saw this exact shape for subagents in episode 4. This is the main session version. One aside, if you want a stateless run that writes nothing to disk, set persist session to false, that is TypeScript only. Python always persists. Fork is resume plus fork session true. It starts a new session from a copy of the original's history, then goes its own way. The fork gets a fresh ID, and the original ID and transcript stay exactly as they were. You now hold 2 threads you can resume separately. 1 down the JWT path, 1 exploring OAuth. 1 caveat to hold on to. Fork branches the conversation, not the file system. If the forked agent edits a file, that edit is real and visible to anything in the same directory. To branch and revert files, that is checkpointing coming up. So here is a practical payoff. Remember the result subtypes from episode 1. When a run ends on error, max turns, or error max budget, that is not the end of the conversation. The session is saved. So you read the subtype, and you resume the same session ID with a higher turn limit, and the agent keeps going from exactly where it stopped. No lost work. The same move recovers from a process restart or hands the thread to a different agent. You do not have to manage those JSON-L files by hand. Both SDKs ship helpers. List sessions enumerates what is on disk, get session messages reads a transcript, get session info, rename session, and tag session. Let you build a real picker with titles and tags plus your own cleanup logic. 1 version though, so you do not chase a dead API. The experimental v2 session API, the one with create session and a send stream pattern, was removed in 0.3.142. The current way is query plus the options on this episode. Now, the other half, files. A session brings back the conversation, but the files on disk are wherever the agent last left them. Checkpointing fills that gap. It snapshots a file before the agent writes to it, so you can roll it back. Turn it on with enable file checkpointing. Set accept edits so the agent is not stopped at every write, and pass the replay user messages extra arg, which is what makes the checkpoint IDs show up in the stream. 1 hard boundary. It only tracks write, edit, and notebook edit. Anything the agent does through bash. An echo redirect, a set in place, is invisible to checkpointing. Every user message in the stream now carries a UUID, and that UUID is a restore point. Capture the first one, and you can put every file back to its original state. Then call rewindFiles with that ID, and the edits are undone. Created files deleted, modified files restored. Here is the subtlety to say out loud. Rewind restores the files. It does not rewind the conversation. Claude still believes it made those edits. So for a coherent undo, you usually pair the file rewind with a resume. So the conversation and the disk agree. And the disk, one for gun lives between you and a working rewind. If you try to rewind after the response loop has finished, the connection to the CLI is already closed and you get process transport is not ready for writing. The fix is small. Resume the session with an empty prompt. That reopens the pipe, then call rewindFiles on that new query and break out. You can also rewind midstream while you are still iterating, and then you do not need this at all. Put it together and you get a genuinely nice experience. The agent adds doc comments to a file with checkpointing on. As it runs, you capture the first user message UUID as your restore point and the session ID for later. When it finishes, you show the user the change and offer to undo. If they say yes, you resume with that empty prompt and rewind. The file snaps back to how it started. That is real undo for agent edits, and it is maybe 20 lines. To carry forward, hold 2 layers of memory in your head. The session is the conversation, and you move through it with continue, resume, and fork. The checkpoint is the files, and you undo with rewindFiles and a UUID. Sessions and checkpoint are separate on purpose. One is the talk, one is the disk, and the cleanest agents keep them in sync. Next episode, we stop persisting the agent and start shaping it. Claude.md, System Prompts and Skills. See you there.